Have you ever wondered why a woman can look at you with that unmistakable spark in her eyes, lean closer than she needs to, brush her hand against yours by accident, yet when the moment comes, she doesn't say anything? No compliment, no confession, not even a hint of direct acknowledgement. Just silence. And in that silence, you start doubting yourself. You replay every signal, every glance, every laugh, and wonder, am I crazy? Did I imagine it? Why won't she just admit it? That silence can feel heavier than rejection, because rejection at least gives you an answer. Silence leaves you trapped in questions. The truth is, her silence isn't empty, it's calculated, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. Silence is one of the most powerful tools women use in attraction, because silence creates tension. Silence makes you lean in. Silence forces you to guess, to chase, to prove. She knows this maybe not in words, but in instinct. She knows the second she withholds confirmation, your mind starts running wild. That's where she gains power in your overthinking. Think about the last time this happened. You texted her something playful, something that showed interest, and she didn't reply. Hours passed, maybe even a day. Yet when she finally responded, it wasn't with an apology. It was casual, dismissive, as if nothing happened. And you, instead of standing your ground, felt relief. You forgave the silence instantly, because the anxiety it created in you was worse than the disrespect of it. That's the trap. Her silence conditions you to accept less, while you give more. Why does she do it? Because silence allows her to test you without risk. If she's attracted to you but unsure of your strength, she'll hold back to see how you react. Do you collapse into neediness, flooding her phone with texts? Do you crumble into self-doubt, convincing yourself she's lost interest and chasing her harder to compensate? Or do you stay calm, detached, unmoved, showing her that her silence doesn't control your value? Her attraction deepens for the man who can sit with silence without losing himself. This is where most men fail. You've been trained to interpret silence as a problem you must solve, as if her quiet means you must fill the space with effort, more words, more texts, more attention. But every time you rush to fill the silence, you're handing her the control she's looking for. You're showing her that her absence is more powerful than your presence. That's weakness, and women sense it instantly. Here's the brutal truth when she's silent. She's not waiting for your poems, your reassurance, or your persistence. She's waiting to see if you betray yourself. If you can't hold your ground in the face of nothing, you'll never hold your ground in the face of her storms. So how do you handle this? You do nothing. That's the move. When she's silent, you let the silence stretch. You don't rush to rescue her attention. You don't play detective, trying to decode her every pause. You center yourself. You keep living. You let her silence expose her intentions, instead of letting it expose your desperation. And if her silence continues, you interpret it not as a riddle, but as an answer. Her interest isn't as strong as you hoped. That's not a tragedy, it's clarity. The practical strategy is simple when she's silent. You mirror. If she delays a response for 6 hours, you don't reply within 6 minutes when she finally texts. You slow down. You move at her pace or slower. This communicates one thing, that your time is as valuable as hers, that you are not a dog waiting by the door. You become unpredictable, and in that unpredictability, you regain the upper hand. And when the silence isn't just in texts, but in person, when she lingers close but doesn't verbalize her attraction, you don't rush to verbalize yours either. You hold her gaze a little longer, but you don't break the silence first. Let her be the one to cross that line. Let her invest, because the man who fills every gap becomes forgettable. The man who holds his ground in silence becomes magnetic. You've probably been in situations where you broke first, where her quiet made you overcompensate, and she lost interest the second you revealed your need for reassurance. Looking back now, do you see the pattern? Do you see how silence was never weakness on her part, it was a test of yours? So, I'll ask you directly, have you ever recognized yourself in this exact situation? What happened next? Which one of these toxic behaviors have you faced before? Be specific in the comments. And tell me what's the hardest part of walking away when you know she's manipulating you. Picture this, you're sitting across from her at dinner. She looks stunning, her hair catching the light, her eyes lingering just a fraction longer than usual. You feel the pull, you know she feels it too. But instead of voicing anything, instead of leaning into the moment, she simply stays quiet. She lets you speak, lets you carry the conversation, lets you work to bridge the silence. And while you're sweating to fill the gap with charm, she leans back, composed, mysterious. That silence is her canvas, and she knows you'll paint all over it with your effort. Men underestimate how deeply silence can be weaponized. Some women use words to manipulate, others don't need to. A glance withheld, a pause before replying, a laugh that never comes. They're all cues designed to provoke your reaction. Her silence says, prove yourself. Show me what you'll do when I give you nothing. If you overinvest, she knows she owns your attention. If you crumble, she knows your confidence was a mask. But if you stay grounded, she knows you can't be shaken so easily. Let's get brutally honest most of the time. Her silence isn't about shyness, it's about control. Maybe she's genuinely attracted but doesn't want to give you the satisfaction of knowing it. Maybe she's testing whether your attraction makes you desperate. Or maybe she's not that invested, and she's keeping you dangling while she decides if you're worth her time. In every case, the silence is a filter. It separates the men who can command presence from the ones who perform for scraps. This is why you must reframe silence in your mind. Stop seeing it as rejection. Stop seeing it as mystery. See it for what it is, a test of your tolerance for uncertainty, your ability to stand firm without external validation. You want to be attractive, don't collapse into explaining yourself. Don't text paragraphs when she gives you one word. Don't nervously ramble when she gives you nothing but a stare. Stand in it, smile at it, show her you're comfortable where most men panic. Here's the tactic you need whenever she withdraws. You mirror, but colder. If she goes quiet, you go quieter. If she delays, you delay longer. If she's hesitant to show her cards, you refuse to lay yours down first. This doesn't mean playing childish games, it means protecting your frame. You don't reward silence with attention. You don't chase absence with effort. You match her energy, and in doing so, force her to either step up or step out. This is where men confuse things. They think being calm in her silence means punishing her, ignoring her completely, or cutting her off instantly. That's not it. Indifference isn't aggression. Indifference is power. It means you don't react to her silence with insecurity. You don't feed the void with more than she gives. You simply stay consistent, unmoved, present in your own life. That contrast your stability against her silence creates the tension she cannot control. That's when she breaks. That's when she invests. Think of the last time you held your tongue, when you resisted the urge to double text, when you didn't explain yourself after she went cold. Didn't she come back stronger? Didn't she ask, "What are you thinking?" Didn't she suddenly put in more effort? That wasn't luck. That was the effect of your restraint. Silence. when mirrored with strength, reverses the polarity. She realizes she's not the only one who can withhold. She realizes you don't need her cues to define your confidence. That's when attraction transforms from a game into genuine respect. But here's the danger: most men never get that far. They let silence eat at them until they explode with effort. They text paragraphs. They confess too soon. They try to buy their way back into her attention with compliments or favors. And every time they do, they bury themselves deeper in weakness. A woman's silence isn't the problem. It's your inability to endure it. The shift begins when you decide her silence doesn't dictate your behavior. When you treat her pauses as neutral, not meaningful. When you stop assigning drama to every unread message or withheld glance. When you understand that attraction isn't measured by how much noise you make, it's measured by how much calm you hold. So ask yourself, when was the last time you overcompensated for her silence? Did you notice how quickly her interest dropped afterward? And more importantly, do you have the strength to sit in silence the next time? And let her be the one who breaks it first. Some women will never admit this out loud, but silence is their favorite form of leverage because silence forces you to project. You start imagining what she's thinking, what she's feeling, what she's waiting for. You fill the void with your fears, your hopes, your insecurities, and the more you project, the more you reveal. She doesn't have to say a word, your mind does all the work. That's why silence is so effective. It makes you expose yourself without her risking anything. Imagine you're texting a woman you're drawn to. The conversation is flowing. You're both laughing. It feels easy. Then suddenly nothing. No reply. Hours pass. Your stomach tightens. You start rereading your last message, searching for mistakes. You consider sending another text just to check in. And before you know it, you've typed a second, a third, maybe even a fourth. Each one a little more revealing, a little more desperate. Do you realize what just happened? In her silence, she learned everything she needed about your self-control, your patience, and your discipline. She didn't say a word. You told her everything. And here's the cruel twist: even when she is attracted to you, she may still stay silent. Why? Because attraction for her doesn't mean surrender. Attraction doesn't erase her instinct to test. Women are wired to want to know whether a man's attention is fragile or unshakable. If she gave you every confirmation up front, if she spoke every thought, you'd never have to prove anything. And while you might think that's what you want, it would destroy the polarity. You would get comfort instead of challenge. You would relax instead of sharpen. And the second you relax, the second you stop proving strength, her attraction fades. You have to understand, attraction for women is rarely linear. It's not she likes you, so she tells you. It's she likes you, so she observes you. And silence is the cleanest way to observe. It reveals who you are when there's no applause, no reassurance, no green light. Do you stand firm or do you stumble? That's the question her silence is asking. So how do you answer it? By refusing to answer at all, by living in such a way that her silence doesn't change your rhythm. If she pulls back, you don't push forward. If she waits, you wait longer. If she gives little, you don't rush to give more. This isn't arrogance, it's equilibrium. It's showing her that you're not dependent on her cues to validate your worth, that you move at your own pace, and she can either step into it or be left behind. This is why indifference is the most dangerous weapon you can wield. Not anger, not punishment, indifference. Anger still gives her power because it shows she can move you. Indifference communicates that her silence is invisible to your core, that you don't bend, you don't chase, you don't flinch, you. And when she sees that, when she realizes you won't dance for her silence, that's when she breaks it. That's when she leans in. Think about how different your past interactions would have been if you had mastered this. The girl who left you on read wouldn't have seen a wall of follow-ups. The woman who went quiet at dinner wouldn't have watched you scramble to fill the silence with nervous jokes. Instead, she would have felt your calm presence, your comfort in the space she created. And instead of you proving yourself to her, she would have felt compelled to prove herself to you. The psychological cost of not learning this is massive. Every time you collapse in her silence, you train yourself to overgive. You become addicted to crumbs of validation. You lose respect, not just from her, but from yourself. You look back at your actions and feel disgusted by how much you revealed for so little in return. That's the slow erosion of masculinity not being denied, but being bled out in moments of silence you couldn't control. So here's your next test. The very next time a woman you're interested in goes silent, whether in text, in person, or in energy, you do nothing. You don't explain. You don't chase. You don't overcompensate. You simply hold. Let her silence echo until she decides to end it. If she doesn't, you've lost nothing. If she does, you've won everything. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you let her silence control you more than her words ever did? How often have you exposed your hand too early because you couldn't stand the tension? And what would change if you finally became the man who could sit in silence and smile? Here's the deepest truth you need to hear. A woman's silence is never about you alone. It's about the power dynamic between you and her. Every pause, every withheld reply, every moment of wordless tension is her way of measuring where the balance lies. And the painful reality is this: if you're unsettled by her silence, if you feel the urge to fix it, you've already surrendered ground. Think about how silence feels in your own body. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? It presses on your chest. It makes your mind race. It forces you to act. But why? Because silence magnifies insecurity. When you're unsure of your value, you crave confirmation. You want her to say something, anything, that reassures you she's still interested. That reassurance becomes oxygen, and when she withholds it, you suffocate. This is why men overcompensate. They're not trying to impress her, they're trying to breathe. Now picture her perspective. She feels attraction, yes, but she also knows that attraction is not enough. She needs to know if you can stand firm without her feeding you validation. She needs to know if you can hold your ground without leaning on her attention. Because if you can't, she knows you'll collapse under bigger pressures. That's why silence is so revealing. It shows her whether you're centered or whether your balance depends on her approval. Most men fail here because they confuse action with strength. They think filling silence with effort proves confidence. They think a long text or a nervous joke is keeping things alive. But true strength isn't in what you do, it's in what you don't do. It's in restraint, it's in calm, it's in letting the silence hang without flinching. That's where your power is. So here's the practical play the next time she goes silent. You frame it differently. Instead of interpreting her pause as a problem, you treat it as an opportunity. An opportunity to show her and yourself that you don't chase, that you don't bend, that you can sit in tension without breaking. You don't reward her silence with more effort. You reward yourself with discipline. You stay focused on your own rhythm, your own life, your own priorities. This doesn't just protect you, it reverses the dynamic. Suddenly, she's the one who feels the weight of the silence. She's the one wondering if she's losing you. She's the one replaying her last words, questioning if she went too far. Do you see how powerful that is? The moment you stop trying to fix her silence, you turn the mirror around. You make her confront herself. That's when attraction deepens, because respect has entered the picture. Let me give you an example. A man once told me about a woman who would always delay responding to his texts. She'd wait hours, sometimes days, and he admitted it drove him insane. He'd send more messages, he'd check her social media, he'd find ways to keep her attention alive. And every time, she pulled further away. But the moment he stopped reacting, when he took her silence as a signal to live his life instead of chase hers, she flipped. Suddenly, she was the one double texting. Suddenly, she was asking why he was so distant. That's the paradox of silence. The one who resists, it gains control. And here's the brutal cut: you must be willing to lose her. That's the only way this works. If you're terrified of losing her, you'll always collapse into chasing. But if you accept that her silence might mean disinterest, if you accept that walking away is always an option, then her silence loses its grip. She can't control you with what she withholds, because you're not desperate for what she offers. That's the foundation of power, not needing what she has to give. So let me ask you directly, how many times have you betrayed yourself just to break her silence? How many times have you traded your dignity for a few words of validation? And what would your dating life look like if you finally flipped the script? If instead of fearing her silence, you made her fear losing yours? There comes a moment in every man's journey where he realizes silence is not the enemy, it is the mirror. Her silence doesn't tell you who she is, it tells you who you are. It exposes whether you're a man anchored in himself or a man desperate for outside confirmation. And this is why so many men feel broken after dealing with a woman's silence, not because of what she did, but because of what they discovered about themselves. Think about it when she doesn't text back, when she avoids eye contact, when she leaves you hanging in that cold space. Who do you become? Do you become frantic, insecure, over-explaining yourself, trying to claw back her attention? Or do you remain steady, unmoved, refusing to hand over your peace for her approval? That's the choice you face every single time. And the choice defines you far more than it defines her. Here's the hidden cost of reacting to silence every time you do. You reinforce to yourself that your value is negotiable. You teach your nervous system that her attention is the prize, and your stability depends on it. That is the death of masculine presence. You can't command respect if your calm collapses at the sound of nothing. But when you learn to detach, when you train yourself to see silence as neutral, you stop bleeding power. You start seeing the game clearly. You understand that silence is just one of many tools women use, not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to seek strength. And if you're shaken by nothing more than a pause, you're not the strength they're looking for. Here's your strategy from this point forward: practice sitting in silence, not just with women, but in your life. When someone doesn't reply, don't chase. When a conversation lulls, don't scramble to fill it. When you feel that itch to explain yourself, bite it back. You'll notice something incredible. The silence stops controlling you. You stop fearing it. And the moment you stop fearing it, it stops being used against you. This doesn't just change how women see you, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to realize you never needed her words to validate your worth. You begin to walk with a calm that unsettles others, because they can't move you with withdrawal. You start to radiate a different kind of presence, the kind that makes her silence feel heavy, not yours. That's when she begins chasing your attention. That's when she begins fearing your indifference. And remember this final truth: her silence doesn't mean she holds the power. It means she's waiting to see if you'll hand it over. Most men do. They hand it over gladly, just for a few crumbs of reassurance. But not you, not anymore. From now on, you'll let her silence reveal her intentions, while your silence reveals your strength. You won't flinch. You won't chase, you won't explain. You'll stand still, and in that stillness, she'll have to decide whether she wants to step closer or drift away. Either way, you win. If she comes closer, it's because she respects your strength. If she drifts, it's because she was never going to value you anyway. That clarity is worth more than any validation she could have given. That clarity is what saves you from years of wasted energy, manipulation, and doubt. So let me leave you with this. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. And now you know. And now you won't forget.